So the subject of the video today is a rant, and it's sort of going to start about Uber and their vehicle practices, and certain other companies have this same practice. To be a driver for that company, you have to have your vehicle be of a certain age, and it's not at all about the quality of the vehicle, it's just about the age of the vehicle. Obviously this kind of brings up some issues, and it's really a weird policy when you really get down to it and you really think about it and analyze it. So right here I have some of Uber's requirements up on my phone. Nice Google Pixel. So in Atlanta it's got to be 2005 or newer, Boston 2001, Chicago 2001, DC it's got to be 2005 or newer, 2001 or newer for Denver, for Dallas 2000 it's 2003 or newer. For Milwaukee, it's 2001 or newer. Nashville, it's 2001 or newer. New York City, it's 2010 or newer. That's a very strict code there. Philadelphia, it's 2000 or newer, or it could be 2001 or newer, but not updated yet on the platform. And Pittsburgh, 2006 or newer, but if you have a hybrid, it's 2004 or newer. So they're a little bit less strict on the hybrids there. And LA, OC/SD and SF, that is 2001 or newer. And it says, while Uber X and Uber XL vehicle requirements have changed, most other service requirements have remained the same. For example, if you drive for Uber Black and Uber SUV, you must have an SUV that is equal or newer to 2010. Also, I think these restrictions have actually gotten more lenient of recent, because I used to remember that it was your vehicle had to be like 5-6 years old. Initial driver requirements obviously have to be 21, 23 in some places. Must be fit to pass an inspection, and you're required to have a clean driving record. So here are some restrictions that get to be a little bit more, questionable. Is that you're not allowed to drive a full-size van. You can't drive a Ford Transit, Ford E-Series, or GMC Savannah, which is kind of dumb because you can get those vehicles with a lot of seats and they're not that bad. It also says that taxis and other marked vehicles are not accepted. Okay, fine. And then it says this: the use of a Crown Victoria is prohibited. They've literally outlawed Crown Victorias because taxi drivers drive Crown Victorias. Now that's just got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, not very many Crown Victorias are going to fit the year requirements anyway, but that's just a dumb requirement. The Crown Victoria? You can't drive a Crown Victoria? It's a nice sedan. Just so stupid. And it says Uber does not allow the use of salvaged vehicles. Whatever. That is what it is. Recommended vehicles for Uber X: Toyota Prius, Honda Accord, Mazda 3, Mazda 6, Toyota Camry and Corolla, Ford Focus, Nissan Altima. Get all the bays in the Altima. Ford F-150, Toyota Tacoma, Honda Civic, Chevrolet Malibu, Chevrolet Cruze, Chevrolet Cobalt. Ugh, I don't want to be picked up on a Cobalt. Who wants to be picked up in a Cobalt? XL, newer with 100,000 or less on the clock. Recommended for Uber XL, because it's extra large, extra better. GMC Acadia, Dodge Caravan, Honda Odyssey, Ford Explorer, Ford Expedition, Honda Pilot, Dodge Durango, Jeep Cherokee, and Chevrolet Suburban. Uber Black and Uber SUV. Uber Black and Uber SUV. I'm gonna say it like that from now on. Don't criticize me. Sedan or full-size SUV. Black exterior and interior. Vehicle should be at least 2010 or newer. Updated from 2012. And it must seat at least 4 passengers or 6 passengers. Airport permit is required. So you gotta pick up people from the airport, makes sense. So just Cadillac Escalade, Suburban, Navigator, Yukon XL. That's reasonable requirements for Uber Lux. So now we're gonna talk about some of the ramifications of this. So what's an example of a car that, would be outside of these requirements, would be absolutely wonderful to be picked up in as an Uber? Well, I present to you the 1999 to 2002 Bentley Arnage. That is a Bentley Arnage made from 1999 to 2002, which makes it outside of most of the requirements, and 1999 models outside of all the requirements. But this is just a wonderful, beautiful car. Might put some pictures on screen. Yeah, it's a beautiful car. It's just breathtaking, and it's a great interior too, which is probably the most important thing with an Uber. You can see there, that's up front. It's got nice interior, nice leather wood interior. Even got a place to put your laptop. It's a wonderful car, and cars like that would not be able to qualify for Uber. Let's think of some other cars that couldn't qualify for Uber. One is, let's say you had a classic Diablo, and you can't have that as an Uber. That's too old. You can't have 993 Porsche. I mean, no, you wouldn't do that as an Uber anyway, because there's no back seat. But like, think about it. Like, you could have a classic. Okay, I got up a list of some cars here that also wouldn't qualify. Let's see. If you had a classic 90s BMW 7 Series, you also would not qualify. If you had a 90s Audi A8 that was perfectly kept, you could not use that. You could not use a 90s Mercedes 500e. You couldn't use a Lexus LS 400. And that's just the start of some cars that you can't use. So what Uber's basically saying is that your car can be Concours d'Elegance or Pebble Beach ready. You know, it's going to win all the car shows. But you could not use it as an Uber. Not necessarily that you'd want to, but it's just that Uber is limiting themselves. Maybe some of these people with these great cars that are well kept might want to be an Uber driver. And there's tons of people with cars that are newer, that are just horrible, that you wouldn't want to be in, and that technically qualify, like that Chevrolet Cobalt. Would you rather be in a trashy 2006 Cobalt or a well-kept 90s Subaru Legacy? You'd rather be in the Subaru Legacy that was well-kept and not the 2006 Chevrolet Cobalt. And the interior in the Cobalt would be worse, even though Subaru is not a company that really prides themselves on their interiors. At least they didn't cheap out like Chevrolet did with that car, or like Nissan did with the Altima, or the ultimate car that you should not use as an Uber vehicle that does qualify, the Mitsubishi Mirage. And that's the vehicle that would make you the most hated Uber driver just based on the fact that your vehicle sucks. It's the cheapest car on the market, and it would technically qualify to be an Uber vehicle. But your car, because it's too old, not because it's not good enough, will not qualify. Just imagine this scene. Hello, sir. I'd like to use my Bentley Arnage as an Uber vehicle. Sorry, pal. You know, it doesn't fit. You know, it's too old. We can't have that. Sorry. And next up in line. Hi, I've got a Mitsubishi Mirage. Can I use that? Oh, sure. Is it 2005 or newer? Is it 2010 or newer? Sure! I forgot the other guy's voice. Whatever. So yeah, basically, that's kind of my argument with Uber. There's other things wrong with Uber. I don't like the fact that young people are being wooed into this state where they think they shouldn't own a car and they think they should just get around everywhere with Uber. And there's nothing wrong with using Uber in a pinch, or, you know, when you're on vacation or whatever where you don't have a car. And I don't have a problem with that. It's just that I think Uber is making people dependent on others for their travel, and in a way that's just kind of debilitating. And I think that young people should know the joys of having their own car and having that independence. Uber's not evil in itself. I think that people shouldn't come to rely on it as their primary mode of transportation. I just don't think it's good for that, and I don't think that's ultimately what its place is in the market. I don't think it's as a primary mode of transportation. I don't think that's what Uber's place is, and I don't think that's what they will be in the future. And it's also bad in a way for the taxi drivers, though. I do see those people as being a bit jealous, and they're a bit salty about it, and they should try and compete equally and on the same playing field as Uber, and they should provide better service if they want to be the preferred ride-sharing service. And taxis aren't technically ride-sharing, but you know what I mean. So, I think you guys probably noticed that this scene is filmed on a different day. A little bit of a last-minute addendum here. I want to talk about some of the recent developments with Uber in the news that I really forgot to talk about. I don't know if it occurred after I filmed it or before, but it wasn't on my mind at the time, no matter what. Now, I'm also cutting off part of the rant here. Now, I had a part of the rant earlier that was about Facebook Marketplace. I might upload that later. So, as many of you probably know, Uber has been having problems with their self-driving car program, and specifically they have these Volvos that they were running in Arizona, and one of them hit a lady who was coming across the road. Pretty busy road. Don't know if she should have been walking out in the middle of a road that late at night in the dark, but that's debatable. One of the biggest questions about this is whether or not the self-driving car should have been able to stop, and whether an actual person would have been able to stop. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure. The footage seems to suggest that maybe even a real person wouldn't have been able to see, but the thing with footage is it's not necessarily what it appears like in real life. And maybe also the issue is that maybe the human eye could have seen the figure in that shadow, but can a computer accurately determine that that is a human being? Now, human eyes are well trained to look for humanoid patterns, and we see them in places where they aren't even there. But a computer might not be as well toned for this, and it might not be as well trained to make out those patterns. And even if it is, it might see them too much, and it might start stopping and starting all the time, and people might think the machine is broken. Now, if a person thinks they see another person and they stop and it wasn't actually a person, well, whatever. It's just you made a mistake, you were a little paranoid, but that's it. Honestly, I don't know why Uber has to be so into this self-driving car business. It's just because I guess they want to cut out the whole human element entirely, which is kind of questionable in my opinion. First they cut out the taxi drivers, now they cut out even the people making money with the app. Maybe somebody is employed to take care of the vehicle or something like that. But this whole program to me seems like it's a big failure. I'm not even sure where they thought they were going with this, honestly. The other thing is that self-driving cars are probably another good, at the very least, 20 years away from being a normal thing and even taking up a quarter or more of the market. So I don't know why Uber's messing around with these self-driving cars. I know they are employing probably some pretty high up tech people in the tech industry or whatever, but I think it's kind of foolish of them to think that they're going to be the ones who are going to come out with this innovation, this next level innovation, and maybe it should be left to the manufacturers of vehicles to develop this technology first before other people like Uber start jumping in and start trying to do things like this. While I don't necessarily fault the Uber for causing the accident, obviously they were bad circumstances, but they obviously didn't put enough thought into their system of recognizing humans in dark lighting conditions and other conditions where the camera might struggle to view the human. And actually, I think it's not the computer software or hardware that was the biggest issue, but the camera and sensor hardware that failed in this situation because it really should have been able to make it out, and maybe it couldn't have made it out. I'd have to view like all the data from the system, and obviously I don't know how to interpret that data, but someone would be able to, and they'd be able to determine what part of the structure failed. But I'm guessing that it was probably the cameras, because cameras don't work as well a lot of times in low lighting conditions as human eyes do. I also had this one other annoying story come up about Uber in my news feed a little bit while back. It is from CNN Tech, and it's about this Uber executive saying white men need to make noise about diversity. Quote, diversity. Not diversity of opinions, not diversity of philosophies on business, just diversity in skin color, basically. That's as far as they go. I just want to read to you this quote from Uber executive St. John, is her name, I think it's a her, their chief brand officer. I want white men to look around their office and say, "Oh look, there's a lot of white men here. Let's change this." Gosh, do you think no, why would any white man in their right mind go in, look at their office, see people like them, and be like, there needs to be less people like me. We need to get all the whiteys out. We need to get the whiteys out of this office. No. There's a limit, there's a quota limit on the whiteys we can have in this office, especially whitey men. Kind of crap that someone from like Jim Crow era would say. There's too many white people? Are you serious? God, this is a majority, I'm sorry, but this is a majority white country still. And the people who tend to be more interested in tech, on an average, not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying it is the current norm, is that men are more interested in tech. And I mean, if all the white people, if all the white males were racist misogynists, maybe they'd have a point that they should be much more diversity, and there needs to be diversity forced upon people. But I think as long as the white males can get along with everybody else, and everybody else can get along with them, there's no real problem here. It's just they're just blowing smoke for the purposes of, virtue signaling, letting people know we're not racist, guys. I feel like we should be encouraging people to get into things as they want to. And I think maybe if people come from not necessarily, I don't think from a race, but I think if people come from a community that has issues with providing proper education, they should have all of the scholarships and other things like that, other opportunities given to them. I just think that everybody should have an even shot at getting a job and doing what they want in life, and that's fine. And you're never going to get a completely equal shot, but yeah, I think that's more the goal that I would be pushing for than just diversity. I mean, come on. Do you think someone's going to bring something different to the company just based on their race? That's demeaning people down to their race a lot. It's saying that their race is like the main influence on who they are, which just isn't true. And if you go to anybody who's a top level sociologist or psychologist, they're going to tell you race isn't the biggest factor in who you are as a person. I mean, if a black kid grows up in a middle class American environment, he's not going to be that much different from his white middle class peers living in the same area, but he'd be more different from an African in Africa. He'd be more culturally different, more personality wise different, because of the different influences of those two cultures. So not to get too into that cultural stuff, that can get annoying to talk about, and it can be beating a dead horse all the time. And sometimes it's just people, getting popular over saying, the most obvious crap that we all know. And I don't want to go into that on at least this channel. I don't want to dive into that too much. But that has been my addendum. And there's probably more I could have added here, but I didn't do a lot of research. I know that's my fault. I shouldn't be like using that as an excuse, but take that as it is. And hope you've enjoyed this video. And let's go to an outro. Okay, so this is the outro card. I think this might be a little bit out of focus. That was out of focus for all those clips. Okay, so merch. Merch. Not gonna plug that anymore. I'm not Logan Paul. Not gonna plug that whole video. And Discord link in the description. Merch link. Link to Car Throttle blog, and maybe link to Instagram. I don't know.
That's all.